Darth Bane came from humble beginnings. Born 1,026 years before the Battle of Yavin on the world of Apatros, the man named Desil, who would go on to become the infamous Dark Lord of the Sith, started out as but a humble miner. He was born to a poor miner named Hurst and an unidentified mother, the former having abused Bane throughout his childhood. Involving an incident with the death of a Republic soldier, Des was forced to leave his homeworld and join the Sith army. Even before his formal training, the Force manifested in different ways to assist him. Sometime later, his potential in the Force would be noticed and was even brought to the attention of one of the Sith Masters, Lord Kopej. Believing that he was a fabled Sithari of legend, the Sith chosen one that would make the Sith stronger than ever before. The only other individual to have held this title was the Sith pureblood King Adas, who ruled the Sith all those centuries ago. Des would then cast away his old life and become Darth Bane. Bane was then inducted into the ranks of the Brotherhood of Darkness and began training at the head temple on Korriban. Due to his late consecration, Bane was forced to do extra research as to keep up with the rest of his peers. With Bane's increasing prowess and power as well as his growing knowledge of the Sith teachings, he became disillusioned to Khan's Sith Order. Bane chose to strike out on his own and severed all ties with the Brotherhood. He then travelled to Lehon and discovered the holocron of the Sith Lord Darth Revan. And following a chain of events that would lead Bane to Khan and his Brotherhood, he was able to mastermind their destruction by manipulating Lord Khan to use the genocidal Sith ritual that would destroy the Brotherhood and a portion of the Army of Light. He would then go on to meet a young girl named Lorraine that reverted to her old name Zana, who he would take as his Sith apprentice. It was also at this time Bane had enacted the rule of two, where there could only be two Sith at a time, a master and an apprentice, to solve the age-old problem of Sith rivalry. For the next 2 decades, the pair would gather ancient Sith artifacts as well as building their own strength in the Force. Around this time, Bane felt that his apprentice would become unfit to carry on the great lineage of the Sith, and so sought a way to prolong his own life. His quest ended with him and Zana battling it out for the title of Dark Lord of the Sith, with Zana coming out victorious. While Bane was gone, his line of success has continued and ultimately completing the grand plan, ruling the galaxy and commencing the Third Great Jedi Purge.
Just as the Sith had their chosen one, so did the Jedi. Young Anakin Skywalker was born to Shmi Skywalker in 42 BBY. He grew up as a slave with his mother on Tatooine, where he met the Jedi duo Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Naboo Queen Padme Amidala. In order to assist the party's escape of the planet, he participated in a pod race, being the only human to take part in such an event, and even going as far as to win, despite opposing odds. Upon giving the young Anakin a blood test, Qui-Gon discovered that the boy had the highest midichlorian count known in galactic history. This led many to believe, especially Qui-Gon, that he was the chosen one of legend, the being that would bring balance to the Force and destroy the dark side. Unfortunately, he would not be accepted into the Order for formal training, as his future was uncertain, and he was deemed too old. Ignoring the Council's wishes, Master Jin decided to train the boy himself. However, his plans for Anakin would be cut short when he was slain by the Sith apprentice Darth Maul. Jin's Padawan Obi-Wan would then go on to defeat the Sith and train Anakin as a Jedi per the final request of his master. Obi-Wan would go on to become a knight and even master to the High Council. At the same time, Anakin would grow to be a well-respected Jedi, and even gaining the rank of knight at the start of the Clone Wars. It was even also during this time that he had his own apprentice, Ahsoka Tano. Anakin and Obi-Wan would be the best pair the Order could give, with Anakin even surpassing his master in terms of power. Near the conclusion of the war, he and Kenobi would go to rescue the Chancellor while defeating the CIS leader, Count Dooku, and Sith Lord aboard the Invisible Hand. Being plagued by visions of his wife's death, Anakin began to worry and so started his fall to the dark side. Upon learning of Palpatine being the Dark Lord of the Sith, he went to inform Master Windu of the new findings. Windu then confronted the Chancellor along with a few Council Masters to arrest the Sith, and consequent to Anakin arriving at the scene, marked his defection to the Order of the Sith. Now known as Darth Vader, he spearheaded the purge on the Jedi Temple and executed the remaining Separatist leaders on Mustafar. Faced by his old master, the two dueled one last time, with Obi-Wan coming out on top and Anakin becoming severely crippled. Due to the third-degree burns and the loss of his limbs he suffered on Mustafar, Vader was confined to a cybernetic suit, and a respirator to help him breathe. Over the next 2 decades, Vader and Sidious would rule the Galactic Empire, and Vader would serve as the Empire's enforcer and continue to hunt down any remaining Jedi across the galaxy. It would not be until 0BBY that he would meet his long-thought-to-be-dead child Luke Skywalker, who had joined the Rebel Alliance and was training to be a Jedi under Old Ben Kenobi and Grandmaster Yoda. The two would duel aboard this second Death Star with Vader's intention to turn Luke to the dark side. Luke would defeat his father and resist Palpatine's offer. The Dark Lord retaliated by attacking Luke with Force lightning. Sensing his son's pain, Vader stepped in and murdered his master. Suffering from Sidious's lightning, Vader's breathing apparatus was damaged and he suffocated to death. In the end, he had fulfilled the prophecy and destroyed the Sith, and then transcended the physical plane and became a Force ghost.
Welcome to Versus video number 5. I've been thinking of doing this for quite a bit now. What would happen if the chosen ones of the respected orders battled it out? I teamed up with my fellow Versus maker to have a look at who would come out victorious. I bring you Darth Bane of the Sith, the legendary Sithari of legend, the master of the rule of 2, versus Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, the destroyer of the Sith. Darth Bane was a 40-year-old human male by the time of his death in the Dynasty of Evil novel. At an astonishing 6'5", Bane was a sight to behold. A lifetime in the Cortosis mines built Bane's body into a large mass of muscle, as well as giving him permanent baldness. His strength was prodigious, being able to rip a durasteel door off its hinges after he had been drugged. With Force augmentation, Bane could boost his already capable physicality beyond the natural limits, enhancing his speed, reflexes, and of course strength. His speed was so impressive that when he was dueling his rival in the Sith Academy, he was able to gravely wound the top apprentice Sirac in a blink of an eye before the audience, who I shall remind you of were all Force sensitives, could register what happened. Bane's endurance levels were also extremely beyond the levels of the norm, the greatest showing of this being his use of the obelisk armor he received while roaming the ancient tomb of Frida Nad on Duxon. Obelisk armor was formed from parasitic organisms known as obelisks that attached themselves to a host, giving the user superhuman abilities as well as regenerative abilities. However, such abilities came at a great cost, feeding off the dark side of their hosts, causing extreme pain and constantly pumping adrenaline into their system. The fact that he was able to withstand such agony for roughly a decade speaks to great amounts of resiliency. This is further enhanced by his knowledge of the Force technique known as Crucitorn, which allows one to transcend both physical and psychological pain.
Anakin Skywalker was a 23-year-old human male by the time of his conversion to the Order of the Sith. He stood at around 6 foot 2 inches and sported an athletic build. Due to the severing of his forearm by Count Dooku at the Battle of Geonosis, it had been replaced with a custom-built Mechno arm. His new appendage gave him the same functions as his previous arm, but with added strength and durability, although the prosthetic was susceptible to magnetic manipulation. Like many other Jedi, his use of Force augmentation was very capable, pulling off the superhuman feats of his fellow peers. Anakin's endurance was also nothing to thumb one's nose at, as he has been able to tank several attacks, some of which would have knocked out lesser combatants.
I find this category very simple to call. While both are comparable in speed and strength, Bane's endurance greatly surpasses anything Anakin has been shown demonstrating. Bane shall get the physicality edge. As the reigning Dark Lord of the Sith, Bane held a wide and powerful range of dark side abilities. In order to keep up with the rest of the students at the Academy, Bane would spend hours upon hours in the library, drinking in the knowledge of the old Sith. As stated in the Book of the Sith under Bane's entry, The Rule of 2, Bane has divided his force combat into 3 distinctive schools: offense, body, and mind. Under the offense school, Bane has listed the abilities Force Push, Grip, Inertia, Blind, and Throw. Inertia was an ability that allowed one to move unpredictably towards their opponents with great force. Blind was used to temporarily override one's optic nerves and render them temporarily blind. As for the other abilities, Force Push, Grip, and Throw all fall under the telekinetic capabilities, all of which Bane has shown a high level of proficiency of, even being hinted as having the capacity to move the Duxan moon closer to Onderon. The second school was Body, abilities that drew from the power of the living force. Drain Life was one such ability that saps the life energy of another and replenishes the user's own essence. Bane has only used this attack against non-force wielders and has noted to be difficult to use in combat. Another immense ability Bane had was the Death Field ability, which was a pure concentration of dark side energy in the shape of a spear that killed anything within its field, utilizing it against cultists on Prakith. However, this display of power took place at the dark side nexus, and Bane stated such effort would have exhausted him if it were not for the corpses of the cultists. His 3 main elemental attacks that he also knew were Convection, Cryokinesis, and Lightning. Convection was an ability that allowed the practitioner to create heat from their fists and could possibly set the opponents on fire. Cryokinesis would siphon the essence from a target, essentially freezing them to death. Lightning was by far Bane's most favoured ability from 3, avoiding to stun and kill several targets, with by far his greatest showing being his own inadvertent attack on himself, being able to kill the Obelisk symbiotes and even gravely wound himself. The third and final school was Mind, with several forms of mental attacks at his disposal. Mind Shot was an ability that caused psychic pain to one's opponent, and if successful could leave one open to one's attack. The Memory Walk ability allowed the practitioner to open up tragic and humiliating memories on their opponents, causing them to relive the moments of pain and agony. It has also been noted as a method of sophisticated interrogation. Hatred was a fierce attack that focused outrage, disgust, and fear and created palpable waves that could send another mind into catatonia. Force Horror could raise fear in the mind of another, then trigger horror, and finally insanity. Finally, Crucitorn, as stated before, could allow one to transcend physical and psychological pain way beyond the realm of the normal. His defense of psychological interference was prodigious, after being able to fend off Khan's mind domination and Zana's Sith spells of madness. Aside from his primary abilities, Bane was also capable of putting up a suitable force barrier and was able to rid himself of toxins. By far, Bane's most exotic and frightening ability was Essence Transfer, where Bane could possess a target's body and dominate their will.
Anakin Skywalker was among some of the most powerful Force wielders of his day, with feats that were on par with some of the high-level Council Masters. As a Jedi, especially Guardian, his array of Force abilities were quite narrow: Force Telekinesis, Force Mind Trick, and Force Augmentation. His use of Mind Tricks were average, being able to influence weak-willed targets and resist basic mental intrusions. Skywalker also had the rare Sixth Sense ability that allowed him to sense things across the galaxy. Force Augmentation allowed Anakin to perform feats that even impressed the best of his era, evading both Dooku and Ventress, speed blitzing spider droids, surviving a close explosion, and strength being described as potent as a meteor strike. Overall, his use of telekinesis was top tier, sending droids flying with force waves, flinging a spider's leg back at itself, manipulating spider droids and a CIS dreadnought, and even force pushing Dooku. While it doesn't mean Anakin is greater than Dooku, it does show that he has the aptitude for great accomplishments with telekinesis, and we also hesitate to take the Dooku force push into account, as it didn't take place in the movies and technically wouldn't factor in a canon event in Legends, as the movies take overall priority. But we still believe it is very much in line with what Anakin can do, but by far his greatest demonstration was his ragdolling of the son and daughter on Mortis, though again this was at a time where his full potential was to be realised. He also refined the Force Grip ability to Force Choke and has frequently used the ability to torture victims and restrain them.
It's easy to see where this is going. While Anakin was a powerful and capable Force wielder, he still cannot match Bane's magnitude and variety. Anakin would be pushed around by Bane's decay and possibly staggered by the other abilities from the offense school. Drain life wouldn't be something Bane could use in combat, as well as a death field, as they will both be battling on even ground. Force lightning will be powerful enough to stagger Anakin. However, I don't feel that he has any suitable defense or any knowledge of how to react to force reaction or convection. Finally, Bane's array of mental attacks would certainly give Anakin one hell of a headache. While I do believe Anakin can defend against typical mind attacks, he's an unbalanced Jedi that hasn't mastered his negative feelings, especially not coming to terms with the death of his mother. Bane could easily pry such a painful memory from Anakin's mind and use it to his advantage. Thus, I give Bane the Force abilities edge. From his entry in the Rule of Two, Bane had a wide knowledge base of lightsabers, both conventional and exotic. Bane employed the use of a curved-hilt lightsaber with what was most likely a blade lock system to keep it activated when not in his hands. Curved hilts aided in the execution of dynamic sequences that allowed Bane to attack from unexpected angles, along with supporting his chosen form, Gem-So. It utilizes a synthetic crimson-colored crystal to power itself. Darth Bane was by far one of the greatest duelists of his era, and ranked among the greatest dark side warriors the Sith have ever known. He is highlighted as Sith must have key forms of lightsaber combat, a strong and fast style. With a strong emphasizing footwork, speed, precision, and acrobatics, Form 5 was Bane's primary form of lightsaber combat. Form 5 Gem-So was also known as a Perseverance form, with a sequence of lightsaber attacks that utilized quick counters with dominating offense. By putting one's body weight into their attacks, they could pressure their opponents with their strength, while at the same time keeping a staunch defense with a lesser chance of retaliation from their opponents. This form, however, lacked in its footwork, but dedicated masters could overcome this weakness, something Bane has masterfully done. Also, being noted several times for his second form was Form 3 Sirisu, otherwise known as the Resilience form, which is a strictly defensive form that focused on holding a strong defense, with true masters being noted as never being defeated in duels. Although Sirisu made a great defense, it completely lacked in offense, needing to be paired up with another form. Bane's skill with it was very advanced, being able to hold off 3 battle-meditated Jedi, and even creating a shield that blocked the majority of rainfall, while dodging the ones that got through for 10 minutes. He mastered the other variants of Form 5 Xian, as well as even making note of another alternate version known as Sith Xian, which seemed to be a tactic that would allow him some distance or to recover from a kill. Finally, Form 7 Juyo was the last and final form that Bane mastered. Also known as the Ferocity form, was the most dangerous out of all 7, both to the opponents and the practitioners. Its sequences were strong and fast, and fed from the inner dark emotions of the practitioner, making it extremely difficult to control. He usually employed this form as a last resort when all else failed, or to catch his opponents off guard. This was further reinforced by his knowledge of Dune Mok, a psychological method of combat that relied on attacking one's psyche, something Bane is capable of as seen by his aptitude with mental attacks. When fighting, Bane made great use of his size and strength, and even when necessary, his speed. He was direct and yet also unpredictable when attacking and could hold a stalwart defense when needed. His victories against Kasim and the Jedi Strike Team would help shape Bane into the most formidable warriors the Sith have ever had.
Anakin Skywalker constructed a standard hilted lightsaber with a blue blade. The crystal used is an Ilum crystal from the caves on Ilum. It gave the user a deeper connection to the Force, but didn't really give him any advantage in active combat. He has also shown a profound aptitude with the use of dual-wielding blasters. Anakin Skywalker ranked as one of the greatest duelists of his era, and even the most talented in the Jedi Order, surpassing his master Obi-Wan, a premier lightsaber duelist of the era, and even on par with the likes of Mace Windu. His fundamental style, being Gem-So, even stated by Mace Windu to be the most refined and masterful practitioner of the form at the time, which speaks to a high level of skill of the form as he lived in an era with the greatest duelists of the galactic history. He also studied Ataru, the fourth form of lightsaber combat. Also known as the aggression form, was a fighting style that revolved around acrobatics and unarmed attacks. It focused mostly on speed and generating great amounts of kinetic energy. However, due to its offense-focused nature, lacked a significant defense, which meant it had to be paired off with a more conservative form. Its sequences also meant that stamina was greatly used up, and also the form was only to be used in short bursts. Anakin learned Ataru as so he could better increase his speed and compensate for Form 5's lack of footwork. He also dabbled in Surisu, which he learned from his master, the greatest Form 3 duelist of the era, which he used to build up his defense. Lastly, he had a knowledge of Naiman, Form 6, the most relaxed and versatile of all forms, also known as the Way of the Rancor, a moderation form that incorporated all the previous forms into one, with the style neither being too wild, nor too precise, nor too defensive, nor too acrobatic, nor too strong, instead relying on moderation and versatility, allowing the practitioner to handle almost any situation, as this was the norm of lightsaber styles at the time, so it was always another option in his arsenal. Anakin has also been viewed on a few occasions using kicks in his fights, something most likely from his Ataru training. He enjoyed using his size and strength to dominate his opponent with sophisticated blade work and the refinement granted to him by the likes of Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and even Count Dooku. He surpassed his master Obi-Wan, defeated the Dark Jedi Asajj Ventress on multiple occasions, destroyed scores of Magna Guards, and defeated Dooku, although due to existential circumstances. He had definitely earned his place as a skilled duelist and a talented swordsman in the Jedi Order. This is an extremely close match to call, as both combatants have extremely similar fighting styles to each other. Neither will be dominating the other with strength, and they're pretty even in speed. What sets them apart are their skill and feats that they've displayed. Bane was able to hold off against the best duelist of his time, and held his own against 3 boosted Jedi at a time, one of which being one of the Jedi Order's most skilled blade masters. On the other hand, Anakin has sparred with, been trained by, and even defeated Force wielders in an era full of those we view to be greater than that of Bane's time. Thus, we shall give the slight edge to Anakin Skywalker.
Hello and welcome to the verdict of the Anakin Skywalker vs Darth Bane matchup, with the other categories being on Rico's channel. As this is my season finale, I plan on doing something special for this verdict, so I've decided to do a reading of their final battle. The fight between the light and dark, the good and the evil, the phenomena of the Force. Let the battle begin. Bane and Anakin would stand there in the dune sea, looking at each other with great concern and great tension. Each would sense the vast amount of Force potential, as well as a powerful command over the Force. They would also sense their respective allegiances in the Force, Bane sensing the light in Anakin, and Anakin sensing the immense darkness in Bane. Igniting their blades, both would then lunge at each other with blinding speed, locking blades with each other, neither giving the other any quarter. Opening with their own personal styles of gem serve, they were evenly matched for a while. Bane then decided to change up his attack vectors, but Anakin would be quick to notice his surprise. It was then Bane switched to defensive form Surisu to lead Anakin into a trap. Taking note of this opportunity, Anakin adds in the aggressive and acrobatic sequences of Ataru to further intensify his offensive. Surprised by Anakin's new change in style, Bane decides to retaliate with Juyo and halt Anakin's offensive. With Anakin and Bane cutting loose, it was as if 2 great dragons were battling and not Force wielders. Sensing Anakin's inner rage and turmoil, Bane began to employ Duel Mock alongside his Juyo by reaching deep into Anakin's subconscious and pulling out painful memories of his mother's death. He began taunting Anakin with his twisted past, hoping to erode the Jedi's will. But instead, all they did was anger Anakin. He responded by kicking Bane's lightsaber from his hand, and then dashed towards Bane. Before Anakin could land the blow, he lashed out with convection and followed up with cryokinesis to dominate Anakin. Astonished by what he saw, Anakin quickly put up a telekinetic shield to protect himself, But before Anakin could mount another offensive, he was struck with a barrage of Force lightning, so powerful he was actually pushed back. Anakin's wrist began to give under the strain of the Force, eventually as Lightsaber ripped from his grasp. With lightning making contact, he crumpled to the floor in pain, but was able to recover quite quickly. Building up everything he had, he lashed out with a powerful Force wave at Bane. With Bane's own barrier, he was able to counter Anakin's attack. Bane then grips Anakin by the throat with the Force, levitating him off the ground. Anakin began to clutch his throat, grasping for air. As quickly as he had been picked up, he had his neck snapped with the Force. His body lay there, crumpled on the ground, lifeless, with Bane over him, grinning. The dark side had prevailed over the light, as he knew it would. Thus, I proclaim the Sithari, the chosen one of the dark side, Darth Bane, the victor.
That's it. No.